Today we're going to talk about SB3. This bill is unconstitutional, it's confusing, and it's by authoritarians. We shouldn't be arguing about it. We should just be trying to do stuff about it because we don't have the power to either pass or deny this bill from passing. But we can get a hold of our representatives and our senators and let them know what's going on. So stay tuned. So if you don't want to watch this whole video, I'm just going to summarize it real quick for you so you can get on about your day. I do hope that you watch the whole thing because, if you watch the whole video, then that tells YouTube that it's important to you and that you want to see more of it and more of this channel. So I would hope that you do watch the whole thing. But in summary, the legislator here in Colorado is going to prohibit, quote unquote, specified semi-automatic firearms. Okay? Those firearms include any rifle or shotgun that is a semi-automatic and accepts a detachable magazine. Okay. Notice there's no like gas operated, recoil operated, or anything like that. Just a semi-automatic rifle or shotgun that accepts a detachable magazine. For pistols, it's a semi-automatic pistol that accepts a detachable magazine, but it's operated by gas, either in a direct gas system or in a piston system, also a blowback system. It does have an exception for recoil systems such as your Glocks and your Canics and your handguns of that nature, but it's directly targeting the AR-15s and AK-47s, for example. There are some exceptions, and the biggest exception I think is going to be important is that for anybody who doesn't fall in the category of law enforcement officer or correctional officer or military personnel that are here for their direct duties, for example, for the rest of us, regular civilians, right, for example. And that is, you can still purchase one of these things as long as you jump through some hoops, and those hoops there's two different categories. One with a hunter safety course and a basic firearms training course. The other is those who have a basic firearms safety course and an extended firearms safety course. In either case, you would have to go and get a card, an eligibility card from the sheriff just to attend either one of those safety courses. So there's some costs incurred there, time, money, and effort, so on and so forth. The card that you obtain from the sheriff is only good for 5 years, and then there'll be a record that you have obtained one of these things. So there's going to be a de facto registry of who owns firearms or who wants to own firearms here in Colorado after September of this year, of course, when the law goes into effect, if it's passed this year. But anyway, that's the summary. So we're continuing on with the rest of the video now. And if you made it this far, I encourage you to watch the rest of the video, in my opinion. These hearings are without a doubt a charade. For example, the first time this bill was heard was in a committee where the prime sponsor is the vice chair. And the sponsor, and one of the sponsors, was the chair. So you had the vice chair and the chair were both sponsors of the bill in a committee of 5. So there's 2/5 of the committee that were 100% going to be voting in favor of the bill. How is that fair exactly? So they pushed this thing through during the Senate committee hearing, and now it's up for second reading. It had been postponed twice because they didn't have the votes, but they put a bunch of confusing things that are going to affect, essentially, you and I. Now, to Tom Sullivan's own commission during this last hearing at 1 o'clock in the morning on 14 February of this year, to his own admission, those who have AR-15s right now, the bill will not affect. It will only affect those who do not have AR-15s. And who are those people who do not have AR-15s right now? Well, anyone in the future who would like to exercise their Second Amendment right by buying an AR-15. There's no doubt that this bill is directly in opposition to owning an AR-15, an AK-47, or any platform thereof. What they say is that this bill is an enforcement of the round capacity law that was enacted in 2013. Again, this couldn't be farther from the truth. If they wanted to enforce the 15-round capacity law, they would find other ways to do that. But instead, this is also inherently, it's a assault weapons bill without actually saying assault weapons, because they understand that that term, even though it's made up, divides Colorado. There's some that are like, oh, assault weapons bans, let's go ahead and get rid of assault weapons. Well, you have to define assault weapon in order to do that. In order to define the assault weapon, you would have to understand firearms altogether. And at the end of the day, any weapon can be used for assault, because assault is something you do, a weapon is something you have. So verb and noun, respectively. So you can't really define it. I digress. It has passed the second reading in the Senate. The first reading was to the committee that I just talked about, where at least 2/3 of the votes were already, one could assume greatly with certainty, that 2 of the 5 were going to vote in favor of this bill. It was completely unfair. So now this is the second reading, and it has passed the second reading with a bunch of amendments. And I'm going to go through what has passed so far. So I'm going to go through what the bill is currently. Who is the prime sponsor of the bill? Well, it's Tom Sullivan, as you know from my last videos. But if you're just now finding AAA Coach, then let me just talk about Tom Sullivan real quick. He is the father of a murdered son in the Aurora shooting. In fact, during the hearing, Tom Sullivan, quote, said, "This is the 666th Friday since my son was murdered." He's obviously still hurting inside, which as he should be, but he's taking it out on law-abiding citizens. He's using his sorrow and pity, and he's making a weapon out of it to get votes. Votes that he otherwise might not have. He's literally using the blood of his son to try and push forward gun control bills. You should 100% stop using your son's death as a weapon. Stop reminding people that your son died in 2012. We understand that. We know that. In fact, the murderer, the one who is responsible, is still alive today, because the jury could not come to a conclusion that this individual needs the death penalty. I don't see how that is, but they couldn't do it. So now he is in prison for life without parole. So anyway, that's who Tom Sullivan is. So what is SB3? I'm going to read this verbatim. It is unlawful for any person to knowingly manufacture, distribute, transfer, sell, or purchase a specified semi-automatic firearm, except that the person may sell or transfer a specified semi-automatic firearm to an additional residing in another state or a federally licensed firearms dealer. Okay, well, first of all, it's actually a federal crime to sell to someone else in another state. You're supposed to get the firearm within your state. So that is something that is erroneous in this bill. Now, what you do is what you do. I'm just telling you what the law is. Okay, so federal law says that you're not supposed to get a firearm from another state unless it's through an FFL. Okay, in general, there's some exceptions there. Okay, so that begs the question, what is a specified semi-automatic firearm? Well, it is a rifle or shotgun with a detachable magazine that is semi-automatic. It is also a pistol that uses gas to operate the action. So we're looking at direct gas or piston gas systems. For example, an AR-15, an AK-47. Get my drift. So an AR-15 pistol would be in this category. It does not include any firearm that is .22 caliber or below, unless, of course, the firearm has separate receivers. For example, an upper and a lower receiver, like an AR-15. Basically, under this new law, you're not going to be able to obtain an AR-15 or an AK-47 or something of that nature that has a detachable magazine. It does exclude pistols that are recoil operated. And what that means is basically a pistol, for example, a Glock. When you fire a pistol, the gas from that pistol makes the slide move to the rear and then unlocks the barrel from the receiver. And then the spring inside of that slide allows the slide to go forward, then stripping a cartridge from that and into the chamber of the barrel. And then the barrel locks back into the receiver, basically. So that's the recoil operated. So your Glocks, your Canics, your Smith & Wesson pistols, the semi-automatic pistols, for example, those should be, and I say should because I'm not a lawyer, but they should be exempt from this entire bill. In the bill, they do say that, the Attorney General has the power to clarify exactly what is prohibited and what isn't prohibited, but whatevs, man. We all know that the Attorney General is going to be, here in Colorado, is going to be a left-leaning, probably gun-hating person. That's safe to assume that. Okay, so exceptions. So the original bill, which there has been a lot more put into this bill than what was originally in the bill in the first place, which begs the question, which I know one of the senators actually brought up during this last hearing. It begs the question, is this the same bill? It should probably go back to committee to get re-voted on. And I agree with that. It should probably go back to a committee to get re-voted on, not only because the bill isn't the same bill it was, but also because the original committee hearing, as I said, had 2/5 of the persons in that committee that were more than likely than not to vote in favor of the bill. Anyway, so there's exceptions now. Now, the exceptions to this bill are law enforcement officers that have to get one of these specified semi-automatic firearms in order to complete their duties. Also, law enforcement agencies, of course. The Department of Corrections in their official duties. An entity that operates an armored vehicle. If you remember from one of my other videos, I think it was for the assault weapons ban last year that didn't get passed. They had this exception in there. And my thing is well, why is there an exception for people or for entities that operate armored vehicle companies? The same people that want bills like this to pass are the same people that say that assault rifles or assault weapons are used for murdering a lot of people and aren't defensive weapons. Well, that's interesting because why would an armored vehicle company need these specified semi-automatics? So you can just go ahead and take specified semi-automatic and replace it with assault weapon. That's exactly what this is. It also exempts armed forces personnel in their official duties. So if you're armed forces service member, I suppose when you PCS to Colorado, you can bring your specified semi-automatic into the state because you are acting within your official duties by PCSing here. But while you are here, you probably would be prohibited from buying the damn thing. Okay, so here's how they compromised. And what I mean by compromise, they compromised is, I mean those individuals that are quote unquote Second Amendment advocates, but they're still giving these authoritarians, let's call them, ideas to put into this bill so it would get passed. Okay, whether they willingly give it or they know that they're giving it, that's a different story. But they're still giving them ideas to put into the law so that it would get passed. And one of these is now, in accordance with this bill, you can still obtain a specified semi-automatic as long as you jump through some hoops. And those hoops are obtain a hunter safety course as verified through CPW, or Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and complete a basic firearms training course through an instructor that has been verified from 1812-202.7, which is the new concealed carry handgun law here in Colorado that's going to be in full effect July 1st of this year. The other way you can do it, if you aren't a hunter, for example, so you don't have to go through the hunter safety course, is to do the basic firearms course and an extended firearms course. Okay, well, so those are your exceptions. If you're a hunter, you can do the hunter safety course and a basic firearms course. If you're not a hunter, you can do the basic firearms course and an extended firearms course. And I'll get into those here in a minute. A museum or a firearm that is rendered inoperable, forensics laboratories, transfer to somebody by a will. So if, like, for example, if I die, if I transfer my AR-15s to my son, let's say, or my wife or whatever, if it's in my will, then that should transfer to the person designated. And a firearm that only fires blanks. It also has an exemption in there for firearms that are used for movie purposes, right? Okay, so back to these courses, right? Because that's what this is going to affect most people. Most people who want to buy, let's say, an AR-15 or AK-47 or something of that nature, or one of these specified semi-automatic firearms, they have to jump through a lot of hoops. Now, remember I said there's two ways you can kind of do it. There's the way of the hunter safety course. So you get your hunter safety course done and you get your basic firearms training course. And then the other way is basic firearms training course and extended firearms training course, basically, okay? So the basic firearms training course is 4 hours. The extended is 12 hours. I'm going to read this verbatim because there are some specified time limits in here. So a person who completed a hunter education course certified by the Division of Parks and Wildlife as described in 33-6-107-8 and within 5 years before making the purchase completed a basic firearm safety course described in section 5 of this section. Within 5 years before making the purchase, completed an extended firearms safety course described in subsection 5 of this section, or completed an extended firearms safety course more than 5 years before making the purchase and completed a basic firearms safety course within 5 years before making the purchase. Okay, so what that's telling me is that you could, there's three different ways to do this. You could hunter safety course, basic firearms safety course. Okay, that's one category. The other category is basic firearms training course, safety course, and extended firearms safety course. But within this category, your extended firearms safety course doesn't sound like it expires. It sounds like once you do it once, it's done. Now, there's no provision in here for like for example, the Colorado concealed handgun permit, there's no provision in here for a company or an organization such as the 3 gun organizations or something of that nature. There's no provision here stating that a person who's competing is well beyond this 12-hour requirement. For example, like me, or for somebody who has been competing for, let's say, 3 years with no incidents, for example, in either USPSA, IDPA, 3 gun competitions, whatever, there's no provision for those organizations to give a certificate to this individual. There's no provision in that. So even if you are a competitor and you're well versed in firearms, for example, AR-15, AK-47, and the like, you still would have to do the 12-hour course. And it's pretty ridiculous. Now, I don't agree with this. I think it's completely unconstitutional, and I hope that organizations such as FPC or the NRA legislative branch or whatever they call it, or of course Rocky Mountain gun owners is going to get involved. I hope that all these entities get involved, and I hope that it goes up to the Supreme Court, and I hope it gets smacked down, just like the recent ruling in Maryland. That doesn't really affect us, but that rule basically said that, excuse me, not the rule, the order said that the 72-hour waiting period was unconstitutional. And we have that here in Colorado. Now, that can't apply to us yet, but hopefully in the future, that unconstitutional order will spread through the nation. They're making so many hoops for someone to jump through just to purchase a firearm. Most people will likely just be like, I don't want to do that. Screw that. It's just too much work. It's too much time, money, and effort. And that's their hope, of course. And they know that these firearms that they're, in essence, they're prohibiting, because you won't be able to buy them. You won't be able to purchase them. These commonly owned firearms, you won't be able to purchase them. So they are de facto prohibiting them without saying they're prohibiting them. In order to even attend one of these courses, you have to obtain a, quote, valid firearm safety course eligibility card. So even before you can attend a course, you have to get this card from a sheriff from the county of which you live in. But anyway, so you have to obtain a card, an eligibility card from a sheriff, okay, before you can even do that. And in order to do that, you have to submit your fingerprints to the sheriff's department, and then they do a background check through the Bureau, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. And then once you're cleared, then they will issue a card that's valid for only 5 years. It's only valid for 5 years. And then you can take your firearm safety course, either your extended or your basic safety course. And then only after you have that completed, now you can go and purchase this specified semi-automatic. Yeah, so that's the loops that they're making you go through. For both the 4 and the 12-hour courses, you have to score what? A 90%. You have to score a 90% on the test in order to pass the firearm safety course. A 90%. Yes, you heard that correct. So you can go to college and you can probably get, actually, as a matter of fact, I know you can get a 60% total. You can get a D in college, and you can graduate college with a D. And then you would have a bachelor's degree, for example, with a 60% score. But in order to actually pass a firearm safety course, according to Colorado, you have to pass with 90%. It's pretty ridiculous. Of course, there's going to be a fee imposed. There's going to be some administrative fees imposed, specifically for the fingerprinting, for example. Once you get fingerprinted, I think that's a $25 fee. And then who knows what the sheriff's going to charge there. And I think in this bill, they're saying that the sheriff shall charge the cost associated. So I don't even think they have a choice in the matter. I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm not exactly sure. And I hate this provision because it says it also in the Colorado concealed handgun law that the sheriff, if they have a reasonable belief that the person could be a danger to themselves or others, they could deny this card, and the fees are non-refundable. So if the sheriff believes and has reasonable suspicion or reasonable belief that you are a danger to yourself or others, they could just deny it outright. And then what do you have to do then? Then you have to get a lawyer, challenge it, and then the judge, whoever the judge is on the bench, and they're almost certainly going to side with the sheriff because the sheriff is a law enforcement officer. And if the law enforcement officer has reason to believe or reasonable suspicion that you are a danger to yourself or others, then they will likely deny it anyway. And then you'll be out a card, you'll be out money, and you won't even be able to exercise your Second Amendment right with a specified semi-automatic. So that's the games they're playing. So what can you do? Well, the next hearing in the Senate, which it's likely going to pass the third reading. If it passes the second reading, it's likely going to pass the third reading because it's the entire Senate. That next reading is Tuesday at 10 o'clock. There's not really much we can do anymore for the Senate portion. But what we can do is we can email our representatives again and again and again and again in opposition to SB3 because it has to go to yet another committee, and that committee is going to be from the House. And there will be another public hearing, so you can testify as well. So when that day comes, rest assured, I am going to notify every one of my followers. And you can go and you can testify in person. And I highly suggest, if you can get off work, if you can get there, to do it. Testify in person. Line it up. Make sure that there's at least 3 times as many people in opposition as there are in support. There should be a 3-to-1 ratio at a minimum. We should have every single Coloradan that can find the time off work and from family and, take the time and gas and money and drive up to Denver and testify in person, a show of force, so to speak. If you cannot testify in person, at least sign up to testify via Zoom. Now, they may not get to you. It will be something to say that let's say there was 1,000 people signed up to testify via Zoom, but we couldn't get to them, for example. I don't know if that holds water. If I was a representative or a senator, I would absolutely want to know how many people signed up to testify in opposition and how many people signed up to testify in support. Just numbers. How many people did X and Y? And of those people, how many people are Coloradans? Of course, this is a national, this has national repercussions, obviously, because it has to deal with the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is implicated, which means if this ever goes to court, they will most certainly have to find historical analog, which they won't be able to find. So we'll see what happens in the future. Another thing you can do, you can move from this state. You can hang up your hat for Colorado. You can move from the state to another state that doesn't infringe on your rights. And that also may be better for your pocketbook. For example, in Tennessee, they don't infringe on your rights. They try. Some of the legislatures do try to pass bills to infringe on rights, but it's a constitutional carry state. You can have an AR-15 or AK-47 or whatever. It's no income taxes there. There's just a bunch of things that is going to be better for your pocketbook. You can buy land cheaper than you can in Colorado. You can buy a house cheaper than you can in Colorado. They're generally more of a red state than they are a blue state. If you wanted a big city life or anything of that nature, you can go to Nashville. There's a lot of other states that are better than Colorado in some ways than not. So you can move in the state. That's one thing you can do, and take your money with you. Okay, don't buy in the state. Don't compete in the state. Just leave the politicians and the persons who want to infringe on the right. Leave them with the state and let them wallow in their own filth. You can do that. The other thing you can do is you can run for either the House to be a representative, or you can run to be a senator. This is 2025. Okay, so we have 2025, 2026 to go through, and then there's going to be another election. Now, if you run, I hope that you run as a red-blooded, meat-eating Republican that will not compromise on our Second Amendment rights at all. And we need to get people in the House and in the Senate, and we need a governor that's not going to compromise on our Second Amendment or any other constitutional right for that matter. We need to figure out a way to penetrate the blue wall known as the Colorado General Assembly. You know, our governor is a lefty. Most of our House of Representatives are lefties, and most of our senators are lefties. So they're obviously going to pat each other on the back and say good game when this thing gets passed through. So those are the things you can do. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, do all the things you're supposed to do with the whole YouTube stuff. We just need to have the 2A voice amplified. Also, have some concealed carry courses coming up that is going to be in compliance with the new law starting 1 July of 2025. Check those out. If this bill does become law, I will have courses in the basic and the extended categories as well, because I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Coloradans can actually exercise the Second Amendment, even if they have to take courses such as the basic or extended course. Even though I don't think they're constitutional, that would be a way for you to do it legally so you don't get hemmed up and thrown in jail if this thing does pass. Let's hope it does not pass. If it does not pass, I still have courses coming up, and you can check those out, which I highly encourage you do get training, especially if you believe in the militia, because we are the militia, 18 to 65 years of age, as a matter of fact, in accordance to Colorado law, is the militia that can be enacted from the governor, right? And it's 18 to 45 in federal law. So the militia is a real thing. It is in law. It is in writing. Regardless of what anybody says, we are the militia. We just have to be activated. And in order to do that, there has to be some kind of extenuating circumstance. And if that ever does happen, you 100% need to have some tactical training in the AR-15, AK-47 platforms, or anything thereof. I'm going to stop running my suck now. Tack out.